From Eyewitness News, this is Newsmakers.
Two major proposals could have an enormous impact on Rhode Island's landscape. On Wednesday, Governor Gina Raimondo and legislative leaders announced a sweeping plan to repair the state's growing number of structurally deficient bridges.
Right now in Rhode Island, about a quarter of overpasses and bridges are structurally deficient. A quarter. And it's on its way to 40% in the next 10 years if we stay on the path that we're on.
The bridge repairs would be paid for in part by a proposed toll on large commercial vehicles. And the governor's campaign pitch to use the 195 land for an innovation institute is a step closer to reality, with a proposal to put a 1 million square foot mixed-use development in that location. But both plans are in their infancy. Plus, the latest on the pitch to move the Paw Sox to Providence. Our guest this week on Newsmakers, Rhode Island Governor Gina Raimondo. Welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White. Joining me on the panel, as always, WPRI.com reporter Ted Nesi. Governor, welcome to the program. It's really good to have you back.
Good morning. Great to be here.
So look, no one's going to argue with you that the state's roads and bridges need serious help. I think the debate comes over whether your plan is the best way to fund those repairs. So let's talk about the toll for truckers. Your administration told the Truckers Association a run through the state would cost $40. What does that mean? And how much would an individual toll cost? Do you know yet?
We don't know yet. We don't know yet. I think by a run, that means if you were to drive clear through the state and hit...
So Connecticut to Massachusetts,
exactly,
up 95, $40 for a trucker.
That's the range that we're thinking about. It hasn't been settled on, and the guidance would be to be competitive with our neighbors. You know, if you look from the states from Maryland to Maine, almost all of them do this. Many states like Pennsylvania and New York are in the hundreds of dollars. But we want to keep it manageable. But I do, you know, it's interesting you say nobody would argue. People need to understand what a big deal this is. Right now, about a quarter of Rhode Island's bridges are structurally deficient, or, you know, becoming unsafe. If we stay in the plan we're on, that'll be 40% in about 9 years. We don't have an option. I can't, as governor, let bridges fall down and people get hurt. So we have to do something. And then you say, okay, how are you going to pay for it? I don't want to, you know, raise taxes on the general population to pay for it. The gas tax isn't sustainable. That's a revenue stream that's going down. So we have to find a reasonable, fair, sustainable funding stream. And this is something that most other states do. And it makes sense because these big trucks, you know, this is only the biggest commercial trucks.
Let me stop you on that, though. That's where they push back. Okay, they say, look, we're not talking about just 18-wheelers. We're talking about, you know, oil delivery trucks, the Cardi's trucks, the Benny's trucks that make circles around the state. They're really concerned that as they make those loops, it's just going to keep piling up and piling up over and over again. Is this going to hurt them? No. Two things about that. There is a fair bit of confusion, and we've been hearing in my office over the past few days from the Chamber of Commerce and Trucking Association. They've said, would this truck count? Would this truck count? And in every instance, it's been no. So I do think people should go look at the website. It is the biggest trucks. It isn't the small trucks. It isn't the dump trucks. It isn't the Cardi's trucks. It is the biggest trucks. So that's point number one. Point number two, as I said when I rolled out the proposal, you know, we are willing to sit down with local companies and say, is there a way that we can make this less burdensome for local Rhode Island companies? And we're at the table, you know, discussing it.
The Newport Bridge, I know Rhode Island Easy Pass responders get a discount. Is that something you could do for Rhode Island Easy Pass truckers?
We're looking into it. You have to be a little careful. There's all kinds of federal laws that regulate how you can treat. You can't treat in-state trucks different in some ways than out-of-state trucks. But the bottom line is we're willing to sit down, be creative, and find a way to, you know, help out the local team. Because certainly you don't want to do anything that hurts local businesses. But let me tell you this. Having roads and bridges that are dangerous is not good for local truckers. You know, these guys, number one, could get hurt. Number two, it's expensive. I mean, I don't know about you, but, you know, we spend a lot of money just in my family repairing the car because our highways are a mess. It's doubly, triply so for trucks. It's expensive to maintain trucks. So in this proposal, yes, we're asking them to pay, but every dime is going in to make the highways safer and better.
But you said in your campaign repeatedly, we're not going to tax our way out of this. This is now at least the third time you've made big news with a significant tax or fee proposal, the Taylor Swift tax, the health source fee, now this toll proposal. Why are you proposing so many tax and fee increases? People thought you might not, they didn't think you would do that.
This is a user fee. So let me be very clear. I inherited a $200 million deficit, one of the biggest in the country.
Now about 100.
Now about 100, but at the time I made some of those proposals, a $200 million deficit, and I closed that deficit with no broad-based tax increases and tax decreases on businesses, the energy consumption. I want to eliminate the tax on energy consumption. This is a user fee. Trucks use our roads. They cause the vast majority of damage on our roads. And also, so we can't ignore this problem. In addition to the fact that it's dangerous and it's expensive, the fact of the matter is the longer we wait, the more expensive it'll become, because if you let a road get too bad and then you have to repair it, it's much more expensive.
But you know, there's a broader concern out there that once the electronic toll gantries are up throughout the state, we're talking possibly between 17 and 20, that state leaders will start tolling passenger vehicles at some point down the road. I know legislation prohibits tolling, but legislation can be changed. I mean, you really can't sit here and promise that when Governor Gina Raimondo is no longer governor, that tolling of passenger vehicles could be a possibility.
Well, I can't promise anything when I'm no longer governor.
Right, that's
so
my point.
That I don't think it's any more likely that that will happen because of this. We're not putting up toll booths, which is what you would do if you were going to do a passenger vehicle type toll. We're not doing that. The gantries.
They didn't do that in the Sakonnet River Bridge. I mean, if you just had a license plate, they would tag you there. You didn't need a toll booth there.
Fair enough, but if you were going to have a highway, like what Connecticut's contemplating now, a highway toll for passengers on 95, you would use a different technology that we are thinking of using. This is a technology that is best used for commercial vehicles, all of whom have the Easy Pass. It's explicitly in the legislation. It's not allowed. And we don't need that money. This makes sense, this proposal. The trucks cause the majority of the damage. The trucks have the most to lose. They're the ones who get behind and lose money. They're the ones who spend thousands of dollars repairing their trucks. We don't have to go there. One of the things that convinced me, finally, that this was a good way to do a user fee, you remember a few years ago there was a bridge in Pawtucket that trucks were not allowed to drive over because it was dangerous.
Sure, and they'd get whacked with a huge ticket.
A huge ticket, right.
$3,000, I think.
Right, there was a big sign up that said, please don't go over this bridge, but by the way, if you do, it's a $3,000 fine.
Right.
In a period of 4 years, the state collected almost $14 million in fines because the truckers would constantly show up in traffic court and say, we'd rather pay a $2,000 fine than reroute, because we can't afford to lose that time. So if they're willing to pay a $2,000 fine, they can pay a $20 user fee to have good roads, because they need to make time on good roads.
And as you said, the tolls are to fund your roadworks plan. You want to do $4.8 billion, I believe, in over the next 10 years in road and bridge projects. General Assembly leaders were there with you, so we assume it's on the fast track. It'll probably get approved in some form or fashion. How many projects are shovel ready? How soon will you be doing a lot of projects if roadworks is approved?
Right away.
When is right away?
This summer. Because the way it works is, as you just said, it's part of a 10-year plan. I brought in a new DOT head. I said, give me a 10-year plan, not a 2-year plan, to do highways, overpasses, bridges, on and off ramps. I don't know about you, but our on and off ramps are awful and dangerous. We got to fix them. So once we know we have the security that we can do the user fee, then we can automatically start rerouting some of the money and start fixing our highways.
All right, I want to shift gears to the Paw Sox. Earlier this week, Ted interviewed Red Sox CEO and one of the owners of the Paw Sox, Larry Lucchino. I want you to listen to what he had to say when Ted asked him about what another potential deal could look like. Here's Larry Lucchino.
We'll try to be flexible, but we also need the state to be flexible. This is a, quote, public/private partnership. That means something. It's we're trying to give it some vitality. That means both sides need to invest something in it, and both sides need to have demonstrable benefits that flow from it.
That was Larry Lucchino on the PawSox proposal moving to Providence. He said there both sides need to invest something in it. How much of a taxpayer investment are you comfortable making?
Well, it depends what we get for it. So the initial proposal asked the taxpayers to put up all the money to build the owners a ballpark. So I'm not interested in that. You know, if the state's going to put up money, then we need to own the ballpark. We need maybe to have a revenue share. You know, there could be, as I've said from the beginning, nobody wants to lose the PawSox. I think that would be a blow to Rhode Island, and we want the PawSox to stay. Having said that, our bridges and our schools are falling apart, so we can't spend too much money on it.
So you're willing to walk away if you had to?
Yes, I've said that from the beginning.
You're
Yes.
willing to be the governor who lost the PawSox?
I am not willing to be the governor that does a bad deal for the taxpayers in order to build a stadium.
How much closer are you to reaching a deal today than when you started the renegotiation? Forget the original proposal, that was dead. Are you significantly closer to a deal after the month or so of negotiations that have taken place?
I think so. I mean, Larry Lucchino has been very good to work with, and he's a pro. So, you know, obviously we did want to take a little time off to grieve Mr. Skeffington. So it's, you know, preliminary in the new discussions, but I think there's good faith on both sides, and they're good discussions, and if there's a deal to be had that is good for both sides, then we'll get it done.
Lucchino was optimistic with Ted that a deal could be reached by the end of the legislative session. Do you share that optimism?
That seems unlikely because the legislative session seems to be moving towards being wrapped up. You know, there's a lot of things that aren't known that need to become known. They'll need a tax stabilization deal from the city. Brown has to provide some authority. I don't think we've seen the specifics on how much the ballpark will cost. So it's a big deal. You know, I'm hopeful. I think if we can get it done on terms that are good for Rhode Island, I agree with what he just said. It could be catalytic. But, you know, I have to watch out for the taxpayer.
Have the owners been flexible enough, in your view, in the negotiations?
They're beginning to show flexibility.
Have you met with personally with Larry Lucchino since the passing of Jim Skeffington?
I have not, no.
Okay. And who's handling most of
that? The person I put in charge of the 195 Commission.
I want to go back before we go to a break and end up this section here, back to tolling. My understanding is the tolls on the trucks would be used to pay a $700 million bond.
Yes.
So eventually that bond's going to get paid off. Do the tolls come down?
Well, it'll probably be a 15 or 30-year bond. I mean, I don't know the precise terms. And I suspect at that point, there'll be more infrastructure to do. So the whole point of this is to have a steady funding stream to fund infrastructure projects. Also, don't forget this. Thousands of people are going to be put to work because of this. Unemployment rate in the building trades in Rhode Island is still 20%. We are going to put thousands of people to work right away rebuilding Rhode Island. And to me, I'm trying to spark a comeback. I don't want 50 out of 50 roads. I want good roads. I want to put people to work. Let's spark the comeback. It's a fair proposal. It's a good proposal. It's in line with our neighbors. Let's get it done. Our
guest is Rhode Island Governor Gina Raimondo. When we come back, Providence could see a 1 million square foot development. Maybe. When we see where that things stand on the 195 land. Stay with us. You're watching Newsmakers. Welcome back to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White. To my right is WPRI.com reporter Ted Nesi. Our guest this week is Governor Gina Raimondo. Ted.
So as Tim mentioned before the break, Wexford Science and Technology, big firm. They've done projects all over, innovation projects, and CV Properties, a more local developer. They want to put this potentially 1 million square foot complex on the 195 land. Would they be eligible for the $25 million you've put in your budget for the 195 Development Fund?
Yes. I think so.
Is it earmarked for them?
No, certainly not. It's not earmarked for them. But it's the kind of project that we would want to incentivize and encourage. You know, this could be a game changer. I mean, this is 1 million square feet of job creating development in industries that we need. It's what I've been saying for a long time, you know, that 10-second story is we lost all those old line manufacturing jobs. We need to position ourselves for high growth industries, advanced industries. Advanced industries want to be near colleges and universities. That's what this is. So I think it's very exciting. It's early. Tim described it as in its infancy. It is in its infancy. But I'm hopeful that it will happen. It has the potential to create thousands of jobs. And it's the kind of thing we should be incentivizing.
Wexford usually needs anchor tenants. A lot of people think Brown could play that role in part. But would you consider putting the new URI research lab there Dr. Dooley has talked about, or a new state health department lab has been mentioned? Are those options you'll look at?
Yes, we'll look at all of those options. To my mind, my vision would be a multi-use, multi-tenant combination of commercial, corporate, with research university, which could be Brown, could be URI, could be Brown Medical School, combined with companies that want access to the talent coming out of those labs.
Something struck me about this. It was a big story when it came out. I know Ted has been working on it for a very, very long time. But you didn't hold a news conference when this happened. How come?
Well, it's early. It's early going. Once we get a few tenants lined up, I think that would be a more appropriate time.
Some people might look at it, though, as maybe a confidence issue, that maybe the deal isn't as close as one might think, or you would.
No, this is a top priority. I've been meeting, with the folks from this company since I've become governor. We've been working hard at it. I think it gives me great optimism as the governor that a major international real estate developer is interested to lay down roots in Rhode Island and put $200 million into a 1 million square feet facility. So I'm very optimistic and very focused on filling it up, getting it built and filling it up.
Let's talk about those incentives a little bit more. This week, Senate Majority Leader Dominic Ruggiero did an end run around Providence City Hall by proposing a tax stabilization bill for the 195 land. It takes a taxing authority away from the city, gives it to the state, and it's tax breaks to companies that want to build there. Do you support this legislation?
I haven't actually read it. I just heard about this yesterday, and so I need to sit down and go through it. But I do support tax stabilization deals are vital to get development going in the 195 area. And I definitely support efforts which speed up the process, make the process transparent and predictable. We can't put barriers in the way of developers. And I think that's what the legislation's designed to do, to make it quick, transparent, and predictable so that companies like Wexford say, yeah, I want to keep doing business in Rhode Island.
Are you frustrated with how the fact that Mayor Lorza and the City Council, they've promised to do a tax stabilization ordinance, I believe, but it hasn't happened yet?
Yeah, he's only been there a couple months, so I can relate to that myself.
I believe you were sworn in at about the same time.
Exactly, so I can, of anyone, I'll give him a little slack because I know how overwhelming it is. But they do have to turn their attention to it because it is a bottleneck for development. Here's the thing, we cannot be the I know a guy state. Can't be. It's crushing the state. We need to be the state that is known for transparency, professionalism, best in class, best in practice, and a lot hinges on getting these tax stabilization deals right. If outside developers think they're not going to get a fair shake, you need to know somebody to get your TSA, it takes too long, there's plenty of places for them to go. So I'm focused on it.
People don't know the intricacies of the parcels of 195 and things
Right.
like that, and 1 million square feet. That's
Huge.
Massive. We're talking near the Providence Place Mall. Can it coexist with I hate to go back to the Paw Sox, but can it coexist with a ballpark?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Give people a picture of how it would lay out there, if you could.
Well, there's just different parcels. The ballpark is presently planning to go, the spot that they want was going to be a park. It was never going to be developable.
Right.
It was going to be a park. And then kind of near that is enough space for this other 1 million square feet. So we have a lot to fill up, actually. So it's an opportunity for a lot of development. One of the reasons I'm so excited, too, about the Wexford thing is, as I've said, we need an economic comeback, which means you have to create jobs in stages. So the Wexford, you create jobs right away by building the building. Then you create all kinds of jobs in the building, everything from custodial and administrative to PhD scientists and technicians in between. So that's why it is such a big deal, as Tim said.
You proposed a suite of economic development programs in your budget. It sounds like the General Assembly is going to give you a lot of what you want when the final their version of the budget comes out. Let's say you get most of it. There'll be then a huge amount to implement. What will be your first priority in that jobs program? I mean, if everything's a priority, nothing is. So what will you use right away? Which tool will you grab out of that toolbox?
Yeah, there is a proposal in there called the Rebuild Rhode Island tax credits, which is an extremely important piece of it. And those are intended to work with a bill that Representative Shikarchi has put in, which is a job tax credit bill. The two of those together can spark some real economic development. So one of them is designed to provide an incentive for commercial developers to build, for example, warehouse space. Rhode Island is desperate for new warehouses. You know, we lost that Amazon deal. A lot of reasons we lost it. We don't have new warehouses. So we need those tax credits to get that going. And then that's going to work together with the jobs credit to say, okay, build the building, and then let's incentivize a company to fill it with employees.
Now, the Rebuild Rhode Island credit, as you say, it's for real estate. Your administration, I believe, will have discretion over where those get awarded. Will you consider the Superman building for those if it's approved?
You know, it's a question a lot of people are asking recently. It's not necessarily intended for any one particular building. So the project, there's very clear criteria. There's a but-for clause. In other words, you don't get these credits unless you wouldn't do the development without it. And there's all kinds of criteria. So if it fits, yes, but it's not, you know, teed up for that building.
Mayor Elorza has angered the firefighters union in Providence by proposing major shift changes for firefighters. A bill at the State House would take the ability to change firefighter shifts away from town leaders and require that they get collectively bargained. Would you sign or veto that?
The bill that's presently being floated around, I think, is very problematic.
Why?
And look, property taxes in Rhode Island are high. Property taxes in Rhode Island are among the highest in the country. Property taxes in Rhode Island hurt working families. So, as I said during the campaign, the taxes I worry most about are property taxes. It's what families really struggle with. I know people who can pay their mortgage but not their property taxes. And this bill you're talking about would have a direct effect of having to increase property taxes.
So you think the ability to change something like a firefighter's schedule should be in the hands of a mayor and not be talked about at the negotiating table?
As I understand it, and again, they're working on this legislative process, they're working on that particular bill. Mm-hmm. But, you know, if you listen to the mayors, if you listen to Mayor Elorza, what's at issue here is the overtime bill. And a mayor does need a certain amount of flexibility in order to control overtime, because if you have overtime going through the roof, property taxes are going up. So it's a balance, and I have respected collective bargaining from day one. You know, even during the pension, I was very strong, respect collective bargaining. But by the same token, we have cities on the brink of bankruptcy, very definitely, and we have to be, I think, extremely cautious about doing anything that'll increase the burden on municipalities and property taxpayers.
The Washington Post put you on its list of the most interesting women in American politics last week, said, quote, Rhode Island isn't exactly a launching pad for national politics these days, but the 44-year-old governor could change that in the years to come. When will you announce your run for president?
Well, the Governor Chafee's, doing that at the moment. I am just totally obsessed with Rhode Island's economic comeback. I think about it and work on it 7 days a week, and that's all I'm working on.
So you don't let the buzz that you might run for president go to your head?
Not at all.
You don't think about it?
I don't. I really don't. I think about my tourism plan, my jobs tax credits, Wexford. I'm really excited about this job, and I think we have a chance right now. And I think the people are depending on us, so I want to deliver. That's what I think about. I want to deliver for the people.
I want to get you quick on a couple of policy things. WPRO reported Pawtucket lawmakers want the state to float a $20 million bond to build a commuter rail station in Pawtucket. What do you think of that?
I haven't dug into that, and I don't understand the logic behind why we would need one in Pawtucket when there is one in Providence. So I have to look into it and get back to you.
What do you...
One thing, though, I will say, along with the roadworks program for the bridges, I'm asking my team, let's look holistically at the transit needs of Rhode Island. For instance, I would love to figure out a way to have faster, cheaper train service between Providence and Boston.
I have 30 seconds, and
Oh,
I have to hit
okay.
you up on one other transit thing. What do you think of the proposed streetcar in Providence?
I think it's an excellent idea, but to me, it feels like a nice to have, not a need to have. And I wonder if, at this moment in time, when our schools are falling apart and our pensions are exploding and our bridges are falling apart, is that the right way to spend tens of millions of dollars?
Does it feel like you've been in office for 150 days, less or
At
more?
least. At least.
Very telling, Governor.
At least, yeah.
All right, Governor Gina Raimondo, thank you very much for joining us on the program. If you missed any of it, you can always catch it online at WPRI.com. For Ted Nesi, I'm Tim White, and we will see you next week on Newsmakers.